This is our fifth episode of Who Do You Want to Be? And I'm so excited that we've already reached episode 5. And we've had so many interesting conversations so far. And today we're going to have a little bit of a different conversation that is very technology driven and very human driven. However, slightly different to what we expect to have. And what I wanted to talk to you about today, Sabine, is this narrative that we see everywhere. How can we future-proof our life in this era of unprecedented changes where we can't even catch the speed of things in all aspects of our life? What can we do to future-proof our life? And this is a conversation that I hear of quite often. I read about it happening here and there. You can watch talks on YouTube. And it really made me think, is there a way to future-proof our lives in this unprecedented age of technology and fast-paced movement when we can't even keep up with the changes that are happening? How can we future-proof our life? And this is a question, and I'm not sure there's one answer to it. The only thing I'd like to say is that rather than trying to focus on future-proofing what we don't know, because the truth is things are moving so fast, technology included, life included, everything, the pace of work, the way we work, the way we're living our life. So rather than chasing what we can't catch because we don't know where it's going, and the truth is nobody knows where it's going, how about we take a pause? And that comes back to everything we've been talking about in our previous episodes of stopping and reflecting, and think about how can we not future-proof our life in a way that because we don't know where it's going, but how can we stop and look at what we can control, what we do know, and how can we leverage that in our favor so that when this future happens, which it's happening all the time, every second, we are in a better position to deal with it. And we were talking about this the other day, that what can we control in this day and age? And I think a few things we discussed was we can control how we look after ourselves. We can control what we eat. We can control the way we look after our mental health. And I feel like that's pretty much probably all we can do as we enter this age of that nobody knows where we're going.
That's very true, Abha. I mean, in the end, to be honest with you, one of the realizations I had very recently was whenever I plan something, I am looking at my goals, I'm looking at the reasons why I'm setting these goals. And when I'm planning, it's basically planning by tasks, planning by timelines, making sure that I hit my timelines. But one thing that I do not take into account is whether I'm actually healthy enough to do this or not. So, especially in the last couple of weeks, I was very sick for about 3 weeks. It completely knocked me out and I couldn't do anything. I still had my deadlines that I wanted to adhere to. I still had my goals that I wanted to meet, but I simply wasn't physically and mentally able to because I had this very surprising sickness that just came and knocked me out, and then I had to manage. And that really made me realize I can plan whatever I want to. If I am not physically able to, if I am not healthy to, then the best goal won't make any difference. So this was really one reason, not just for me, but also actually for my husband, that we were saying, we really need to understand what we can do, what is in our control, as you were just saying, to remain as healthy as we can. We need to understand ourselves, our bodies. Every body obviously is very individual. My body doesn't work the way that yours does, and my husband's body doesn't work the way that mine does. But we need to understand, for example, what is good for us to eat? How much sleep do we actually need? What is a good time to go to bed? How much rest do we need during a day, for example? What are good break times? And all of these things. Because if we just constantly keep looking at our goals and we tell ourselves, oh, we can push through, it's just another night with 3 hours of sleep, what we oftentimes forget is what is the implication of pushing our bodies that much for the next day, for the next week, for the next month. Because, of course, everything that we do with and to our bodies has long-term implications. But whoever thinks about this? So when it comes to how can we future-proof our lives, I would say one of the absolute most important topics is our physical health and what can we do to, let's say, support ourselves as much as we can to stay healthy as long as we can.
So how do you do that? How do you keep track of your health and how do you kind of make decisions? Do you go very much on how you're feeling in the time, or do you have a structured approach? Do you have any tools that might help you?
To be honest with you, especially at the beginning of my adulthood, I didn't really care much about health. I ate whatever I wanted to. I slept as little as I wanted to. But, the older that I became, I realized, okay, there are some things that are not as good for me as others. So one of the first things I actually did was one of these blood tests that tell you what your body can digest easily and what are things that you should try to avoid. Now, that was a great thing to look at, and I understood the graph, but there were many things on there where I thought, really, I shouldn't eat that. It's one of my favorites. So it was very hard for me to adapt to that. Over the course of time, it actually became easier because I realized that, in fact, it is better for my body. So it is that in parts, I am listening to the reactions of myself to certain things. But then in the end, I also felt that that's not enough. I don't just want to rely on my feelings. So for one, I actually used the Apple Watch a lot, which is, for example, then telling me how many steps am I taking per day? Am I in the healthy range? For that, for example, do I hit the famous 10,000 steps a day? It also tells me how my heart rate is elevating and things like these. And then towards the end of last year, my husband got a Whoop and he gave me one as well. And I absolutely enjoy using Whoop because it really gives you very detailed insights about the different phases that you have when you sleep. It even tells you the next morning that, for example, you developed a sleep debt, which means go a little bit earlier to bed tonight if you want to be as energetic tomorrow, which is great because this, for example, sleep in particular, is one thing that I tend to neglect. I completely underestimate the importance of sleep. And so having my little technological companion to tell me, hey, pay some attention tonight, it would be easier for you tomorrow if you went to bed earlier tonight, that's extremely helpful. So I can highly recommend the use of gadgets like this. And I bet that you were also using something, Abba, knowing you.
I am. I wear the Ultrahuman Ring. It's over here. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see it. It's interesting you talk about sleep because I didn't recognize the importance of sleep till I got married to my husband. And he used to keep telling me, sleep is when your body regenerates. Sleep is so important. He's really been the one driving my sleep habits. And that's one of the reasons we got the Ultrahuman. And this comes back to the point of how technology is really coming in every part of our life. And if we have the right technology, we can take what's in our control and make and leverage it to the maximum, right? So similar to your Whoop, my Ultrahuman Ring also tells me how much sleep I got, how much sleep I need, how much sleep debt do I have, what's my heart rate variability, have I done my steps, what are my stress levels. And the reason it's able to do that is because it collects all this information from me, similar to the Whoop, and it has AI algorithms working on the app that analyze and process all this data based on certain benchmarks that then can advise me on what I need to be doing to live in a more optimum way. So, this is another example of how we don't need to chase technology that we don't know yet, that's still coming. We can use technology in our day to day lives in very simple ways just by incorporating the right tools like a Whoop or an Apple Watch or Ultrahuman, because they enable us for not very much money to understand ourselves better, to give us the data that we were incapable of getting in the past unless we went to a doctor, and then giving us suggestions based on the data that it's collecting, based on, I'm sure, very high standards, because whoever's built this technology, I would like to trust that they've put the right people in the back end. So this is a way that we can use technology in our day-to-day life to help us take control of things we can take control of. So if my Ultrahuman ring says I have 2 hours of sleep debt, and I listen to it and I try and get an extra 2 hours of sleep, and that could change the way I am tomorrow, I'm going to do that.
There was something very interesting that you were just saying when you spoke about the people in the background who are developing these gadgets that we are using. And you said, I want to trust them that they actually know what they are doing and that they know what they are talking about. And I think this is extremely important for us as well, since we are speaking about how can I future-proof my life, as in how can I control whatever is important and whatever has an impact on my future. So one thing, of course, is also having the knowledge so that I don't just have to blindly trust and to rely on certain gadgets. So there was one funny incident that happened on the weekend. Me and my husband, we went for a run on Saturday morning. And then we came back home. I had activated outdoor run on my Apple Watch, and then the Apple Watch and Whoop keep syncing. So they kind of update each other. And then after the run, when I deactivated or finished my outdoor run on my Apple Watch, I still had an elevated heart rate. And it kept being elevated for quite some time. So Whoop thought I'm in a different exercise. And whenever I'm in an exercise, Whoop's default is to say I'm going for horse riding because that's what I do every other morning. So now Whoop suddenly told me, oh, horseback riding detected between 9:14 and what was it, 9:41 in the morning, but I wasn't horseback riding. So this is just one example where, even those gadgets can still go wrong. Of course, they measure my heart rate, but then they draw the wrong conclusions. So what does that mean for us? That we shouldn't just blindly rely on these gadgets. They are an amazing help. I mean, I love my Whoop and I'm definitely gonna keep wearing it. But it also shows me that I also need to be able to rely on my own. So on myself, I need to collect the knowledge that I want to have, for example, when it comes to nutrition. I'm using one function of Whoop, which is a daily journal, where it is asking me questions that I pre-selected, but it's the same questions every night. And one of them is, for example, how much did I actually eat? How close to bedtime did I eat? Then it's asking me, did I snack in between? And then there are questions around how much sugar did I actually consume? Or how much protein did I have? And when it asked me those questions for the first time, I thought, well, first of all, I have no idea how much I actually consumed. And the next, especially for protein, the next question for me was, how do I actually know how much protein is good, how much is sufficient, and how much is too much? And this is where my own education comes in. So this is where then I need to be able to rely on myself to understand, all right, with my current body weight and with this amount of exercise that I'm actually doing, this would be the ideal amount of protein. So it does require quite a lot of time and understanding and curiosity to a certain extent to really be able to have as much control over our health as we can. But I think it is absolutely relevant because going back to, to the beginning of our conversation, unless we have a good control over our health, we won't be able to follow through with any other goals. Because what am I going to do when I'm going to fall sick in a couple of weeks again? And then for 3 weeks, I'm not able to do anything. I need to be able to understand where is that coming from, but also what can I do to get myself back on my feet so that I can minimize the duration of my sickness.
And you brought up a very important point about thinking critically about the tools we're using. 100% you want to trust the tool that you've deployed. However, being able to think critically about the information it's giving you is fundamental, whether it's a Whoop, whether it's an Apple Watch or an Ultrahuman Ring, or whether it's ChatGPT. Because at the end of the day, these are just data processing algorithms that don't know who you are. They're not doctors. They've been built by professionals, but they're just language models and data analysis tools. So no matter what technology we choose to use for any aspect of our life, whether it's looking after our health or or getting advice for our children or using it for our business or using it for our life, whatever outputs we get from any technology, this is a good reminder that we need to be able to think about it critically. And if we are doubting some of the information it's giving us, we definitely must go and cross-check that information with a legitimate source. That could be a doctor or a professional or a health coach or a nutritionist. And it's just a reminder that technology is just a tool. It's there to enable us to work better, live better, do things faster, leverage our time better. However, we are in control. We decide what happens. We are the ones who need to decide how we use the information that it gives us because it doesn't know better than us. And this is something that becomes quite easy to forget when we're in the moment and we want to get stuff done quickly and we don't take that time. Because, like you said, doing all these things that are in our control does require time and energy. And technology helps us reduce the time and energy to take control of our things, but we still need to dedicate time and energy. So, on that note, I think the message really is in this fast paced world where nobody knows where it's going, what we can do is take a step back and prioritize what we can control. And then look at all the technology out there that's there to help us control what we can control and leverage that to the maximum while also keeping a critical hat on to ensure that we are not just blindly following technology because, again, it's not built to be blindly followed.
That's an amazing conclusion, Abba, and I completely agree. In the end, again, it all goes back to clarity, understanding what do we actually want? What do we want to understand? What do we want to achieve? And then the next question is exactly that. So which gadgets, which tools, which AI support can I really utilize in order to make it the most efficient for me? But then also to understand, in addition to these tools and gadgets, what do I have to learn? What do I need to know so that I can still rely on myself and I can understand what is the value of, let's call it the support that I am receiving from the gadgets and AI that I'm using.
So, for those of you listening, take this moment to have a think about how you are taking into control things you can take into control. If you haven't started doing that, now is a good time to start. Because the truth is, as we move forward in this fast paced world, we need to really hold on to things we can control. We hope you enjoyed that episode and look forward to seeing you next week.